Hotline. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kids of all ages, and Chris Harris? Hope everybody is doing well. You are on Hobby Hotline. Yeah. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, I'm crazy. I'm tiny. I'm toony, and I'm a little bit loony. And you're watching our cartoony Hobby Hotline. We have with us the one, the only, the original Mr. Chris Harris. How are you, sir?
All right. I don't know. We're 2 weeks before Christmas, and it's 65 degrees out here in Delaware. So,
65.
Hooray for global warming!
Good grief! It was 80 yesterday in Texas, so
Yeah.
I completely understand. And Mr. Palmer, by the end of the show, you will be. I promise you will be ready to take the blue pill. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Like I said, getting excited for Christmas. I mean, always a fun time to see some family. So that's always exciting.
Yes. And as always, good morning, Rex and the guys at the shop at Mocha. How is everybody doing today? You're tiny, you're toony. Actually, I guess we are on their cartoony. I don't know why I've got Looney Tunes stuck in my head, but for some reason I do. Welcome to Hobby Hotline. You make the show. You make the show happen. You make the show possible. We have the one, the only 3B Collection, Herman. What's up, Herman? What's up, Mr. Herman? And look at this. We're already starting off with, man, the StreamYard's running a little slow today. Manchester City. Weren't we just talking about this? Yeah, beforehand we were talking about little MLS Cup playoffs, Portland versus New York City, and the travesty that is
New York City making it to the final.
I was going to say that, but I didn't.
Screwed over because of COVID, Philadelphia Union. But, we almost pulled it off with our reserves.
That's true. That is true. Who else do we have here? We got Jason Mames and Aiden. What's up, everybody? What's up? So, it is National Hobby Baseball Card Hobby Shop Day. Man, maybe my mind is going just a little too fast this morning, so bear with me. I apologize, everybody. I do want to say Happy National Hobby Shop Day. Happy National Hobby Shop Day. If you get a second, go out, say hello to your little friends at the National Hobby Card Shops. I put into the link a list of everybody that participated or is able to participate into the National Hobby Shop Day. In the comments, you can click that link and take a look and see if your hobby shop is involved. Good morning, Fount 5. How are you doing today? Soccer, now the fourth most popular sport, surpassed hockey. Ooh, and I tell you what, if baseball doesn't watch it, they could be number 3. Baseball's just in their lockout phase, and they're bound determined to kill the golden goose, don't you think, Chris?
I mean, it's a lockout, but it's not really a lockout because it's December. It's the off season. There's nothing going on. They still have 2 months now before pitchers and catchers report to resolve the issues. What little issues that there are. So I think they'll get it done. I mean, what are they really arguing about? Service time and tanking, basically.
Yeah.
I think something will be done because, the owners and the players both lost a lot of money last year during COVID. because the season was only 60 days long, and salaries were prorated. Teams couldn't sell tickets. So I think it's in everyone's interest to have the season go off on time. So,
Yeah. What say you, Mr. Palmer?
Well, I mean, I think what ends up happening with baseball teams is like, you think about it, it's almost not profitable for the owners to try and build a championship team. Like, I mean, you look at how many teams are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, it's more or less like the Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, those types of teams. But like, if you look at those owners, like they probably don't have as much to lose as a team like the Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh might have more to lose if they try and build a championship team and don't win anything. So I think that there should be some sort of cap floor. Like I think the stat that I heard about the Devil Rays was that they had the lowest payroll since 2018, but they were the fourth best team in the league. So I think it's just tough when you look at a stat like that for the Devil Rays. I mean, they're big into analytics and all that type of stuff. So like they're like the Moneyball system that's famous from the movie. But I just think that there should be some sort of cap floor where fans know that their team isn't just going to stink. Like, and I think there's a big going into a season. Like, I think it's a big deal when you can look at your team and be like, we actually have a chance to win. But like, if you are like the Orioles from last year, or I mean, even Pittsburgh, I suppose. But like, if you just can look at your team and know that there's a chance that you can compete, that's a big deal. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that they need to add a salary cap, but I think a salary floor would be good. And I also think that the service time also needs to change a little bit, just because you look at, especially teams have been taking it upon themselves actually the past couple of years to sign some of these big, rookies or the big prospects. Like the Devil Rays just signed Wander Franco. And then, the last couple of years you had like the White Sox signing Eloy Jimenez, and then the San Diego Padres signing Fernando Tatis. So it's like teams are clearly willing to sign these players to extensions before, their service time is up. But then I guess you look at one other player that I was thinking about is like Mookie Betts. Like he is probably the second or third best player in baseball right now. But if you look at his time with the Red Sox, maybe I followed it a little more closely being from Boston, being a Red Sox fan, but like they dragged him through arbitration every single year. So it's like, at some point you have to just say like, we need to just give him the money that he deserves, rather than, make it go to like a court and like make them defend himself and say like, I deserve this amount of dollars, So, I mean, I guess when it comes to the lockout, those are sort of the two things that I wish could change, but at the same time, it's obviously not as easy as just being like, well, let's change this and change that,
Well, I really
can't. The thing is, the system, the way it is right now, is that you're not eligible for free agency until you've accumulated 6 years of service time. Well, by the time you hit that 6 years, you're probably like 29, 30, or 31. And nowadays, teams are not willing to give long-term free agent contracts to 30-year-olds. The Angels got burned by the Albert Pujols contract and the Josh Hamilton contract. And possibly the Rendon contract. I don't know what's wrong with the Angels, but the Phillies got burned with the Ryan Howard contract.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these, one of the complaints is by the players is service time manipulation.
Right.
And we saw
I
this with
that.
like, Chris Bryant was a perfect example. Everybody agreed going into 2013, or was it 2014? He was ready to make the opening day roster, but he didn't come up until like 3 weeks into the season. And he's only getting to free agency now when he's in his year 30, 31 season. And he's not going to get that big money contract that he would have gotten had he been a free agency at 27 or 28. So that's a big issue between the players and the owners. Another thing, too, you mentioned a salary floor to make it more competitive. Some of the proposals that I've heard was expanding the playoffs to 7 teams in each league, which kind of waters it down a little bit. But another thing is going to a draft lottery, like what you've seen in basketball, so that if you're tanking, you may not necessarily get rewarded with the number 1 pick. So I think a lottery might be something that both sides agree on. The
because a
expanding
lottery
playoffs,
can't.
not so much, but
A lottery
service
can't
time
be.
manipulation is a big issue.
Yeah, ask the NBA how a lottery and how that work, how that's not been manipulated.
Well, they're not talking about using frozen envelopes to rig allegedly.
Yeah, I'm a Mavs fan, and lottery and Patrick Ewing. That's still a sore subject for me 30 years later. So I'm not a fan of
that lottery when LeBron left. Somehow the Cavs got the first overall pick in 3 of the 4 drafts where LeBron was playing for the Miami Heat. Like, okay, sure. That lottery system, that totally legit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one season that they didn't get the first overall pick was the Anthony Davis draft when New Orleans was owned by the NBA and then sold in the same year that they got the first overall pick. Like, okay, sure. We'll just go. Nothing weird's going on here.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of a lottery because I think it's exactly. Well, that's a great point. I mean, the number 1 overall MLB pick, I 100% agree because of the time they spend in the minor leagues developing. That's a great point.
And the thing is, the MLB draft, it is a bit of a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the other sports drafts because you could wind up with an A-Rod or a Ken Griffey Jr. You could wind up with a Mark Appel
or a Mickey Moniak
or a Mickey Moniak
or a Pete Incaviglia. So, I mean, you think about it. I mean, you're talking about spending. I mean, the Rangers just spent $500 million, and comment was made earlier about the TV money, the regional TV deals. The Rangers were able to do it because they just got a brand new. There you go, Todd Van Poppel.
Taylor.
Yeah, the list goes on and on and on, where they just got a bunch of dead money off the payroll, and all of a sudden the Rangers drop $500 million on 2 players to shore up 2 positions. So now that argument of everything being a little top heavy, they can't, the players union can't really say anything because the Rangers blew that out of the water. And you can't really say a small market team can't spend that money because you've got Wander Franco and the Rangers blowing that out of the water. So what it basically boils down to is, your favorite word, corporate greed, Chris, and player and owners not wanting to spend the money. Come on, I had to pick on you. Listen a little bit. Come on. Just owners not willing to do what is necessary to actually put a winning product onto the field. And I just wish it was a little bit more balanced than it is, where you're looking at the same teams over and over and over, where there'd be a little bit more turnover. I like the idea of a salary floor. I like the idea of a hard cap, because then you've got a specific range. I like how you've got the ability in the NFL to force teams to spend money, and then the ability to go out and do your own deals, do your own corporate deals. I mean, love him or hate him, Jerry Jones, he did a very, very very good job in the early 90s of, okay, let me take the rules that were within the NFL, follow those rules, and then go outside of those rules to fill in the corporate gaps to go sign Deion Sanders, Charles Hay, and I'm talking 90s football, but that's what take that type of mentality and apply it into today's world where okay, let me go supplement everything in there. So I know, and he's
teams
not
have their own sponsors right now. Okay?
Yeah,
and those sponsors may contradict that of the league sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So Pepsi, I think, is the official soft drink of Major League Baseball. But at some stadiums, all you can get is Coke because they're the sponsor.
Fenway's like that.
Yeah.
Rangers the same. You can't, but Coke is distributed. Dr. Pepper's distributed through Coke, so, which is what's in here. So that the only way you can get a Dr. Pepper, which is a regional drink, and what 90% of Texans drink is through Coca-Cola. There's just ways to supplement and to pull in different money. So the baseball teams crying that they're losing money. I'm not a big believer in that. Chris, I also wanted to ask you this, and it seems to have gotten lost. Last year, the players filed a lawsuit against the owners for the number of games that weren't played in the MLB. And that has seemed to have kind of gotten lost in the mix of these conversations. I mean, do you see that?
I think that lawsuit was settled when they agreed to the 60-game schedule last year.
It was filed after.
Oh, it was filed after. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, well maybe that's a quiet little known.
I'm pretty sure that 60-game schedule was collectively bargained. So,
all right. Well, then I just haven't found at least in my research an agreement to that or a resolution in it. Now that could have happened in my research.
Yes, Diet Dr. Pepper is awesome, by the way. It's like, I don't know what they must put like crack in it because it's so addictive.
No, it was about it was literally about the number of games. The players wanted more, the owners scheduled less, and they went in and they basically filed a lawsuit in New York. I didn't hear anything about resolution, so I'll have to do a little bit more research about that. So we're not gonna dwell on that, though. We're gonna move on to the next.
Move on.
Topic.
You know what? You know what we could use right now? We
could use a caller.
Yes, a caller.
We could use a caller.
Just plug in that thing on the stream. That's
calling all people, calling all cars, calling all cars, calling all cars. Herman, you have no excuse for not calling in. You have zero excuse. So I do not want to hear anybody like Herman saying, I can't call in and get in online. Dr. Jim, Dr. Pepper, then Dr. Fauci, in that order. I 100% agree with that. And I'd like to also include Dr. Ruth. So next topic. Let's talk about, can we talk a little PSA? Can we talk about a little PSA?
Sure.
A little bit, not a lot. So Adam, would you spend $100 to get a car graded?
So I think it's really just going to come down to like if they can guarantee the time that it's going to take them to grade the card. Like I know in their announcement they were talking about the like virtual queues, which is something that HGA has done in the past. And Nat Turner has talked about trying to get down to those $10 subs again, which, that's another thing where I just would be interested to see how that's possible. Like, I think it's going to have to be a tiered system. At least this is from my perspective. I think it would have to be a tiered system where, they say that if you're sending in this type of card, you can use this type of service. So like the $10 submission could be used for like the rookie cards that people are sending in a lot of, or like it could be even rookies of players who like aren't in the Hall of Fame. I don't know how they tier it, but like the $100 submission. I mean, I've only sent in a couple cards. Like I haven't really graded that much myself personally, and I think I ended up spending about $100 per card because I did. This is, I think, last summer. I did like the 20-day service, which ended up at the time it took, I think, 4 to 5 months. And I think I did 50. The 20-day service was $50, but then the cards ended up getting upcharged to around 100, which was good because they came back tens and the card was worth more. But at the same time, I guess it's just I'm wondering. I think the one thing that the PSA has done well, I think, is that they are testing and they're willing to change their process so far. Like I didn't think they were going to shut down in March. Like at the beginning of the year, when they were talking about price changes, like the one thing that I said that I didn't think they were going to do was shut down because they weren't going to be willing to not take in any more cards and take in any more revenue. And maybe they looked at it and said, we have a backlog of whatever 12 million cards. So like that backlogged revenue, we're willing to forego 9 months worth of revenue because we know we have, that we have 9 months worth of cards we have to grade and they're still not fully up. So I think that $100 price point, I think is, the virtual queue, I think should work. I hope it works. And I think at $100, like you look at it and say, I think it's worth the service. It's just going to come down to like how many people are actually going to want to try and get their cards graded for $100. Because I bet you there's a ton of people that have cards just sitting around that they've been wanting to grade and would be willing to spend $100 on, in my opinion.
Yep. Speaking of a caller, calling all cars, we have Mr. John Keating on the line. What is up, Big Cat?
Anybody want some 1994 Leaf Black Gold singles?
Ooh. Wait, show those again. Show those again, please.
Truly is black gold.
First one per pack parallel.
Oh my God. How many packs did it take to get this many, right?
How many bites did it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll?
One bite, but many licks, right?
Exactly. Other than that Eagles logo on the back of your on the back wall, how are you doing, sir?
Don't forget Manchester City, please.
Well, I can handle the Manchester City, but how about them Cowboys? Anyway,
can't help where you're from, man. Count the rings. Count the rings. The 21st century rings we're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, even the blind hog finds food every once in a while.
That's right. We were hungry too.
What can we do you for? How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Most definitely.
I've got nothing to talk about other than junk wax singles that I'm logging into the Beckett OPG. That's my life right now.
There is nothing wrong with junk wax singles. What's your favorite junk wax single?
Let's see. Let's grab one. How about a Jose Silva? Let's see if we can get him on there.
Ooh, that makes that yeah.
That is a 94 action-packed franchise gem. And we got two of them. When one isn't enough, we've got two of them. So I bought a collection for maybe $100, and it had thousands and thousands of junk wax stuff, basketball, hockey, football. So that's why I'm just logging those into OPG and having at it. As Chris can attest, it's a pretty dismal day on the East Coast here. Pretty overcast.
Windy, overcast, but warm.
It is warm. Might have to do Christmas lights today, right?
Dude, now you're preaching to the choir. Christmas lights. What is it? It's going to be. Oh my gosh! It's actually going to be cold in Texas today. The high is going to be 52.
Wow.
52.
I think we're warmer. I think we're in the high 50s right now up here.
Oh wow.
Area. So you were talking about PSA, right?
Of course.
Something that's popped up. I think Mike Moynihan was talking about it on his show. About we don't hear much about BGS anymore. What's going on over there? Do we know?
Let's see. I don't know.
No news is good news.
Yeah, I mean they are still grading. They still are accepting submissions.
They're no higher than third in people's hearts and minds right now, I would imagine, right? There's a lot of talk about obviously PSA and SGC. I don't know whether they're the hockey of this whole thing, and some of the other ones are going to overtake them. But man, it's I don't know about no news is good news. It's like they've fallen right off the charts, you know.
Well, they were at the last Dallas Card Show accepting submissions.
Oh, good.
That much I know. I mean, they were they were there. I almost submitted one. Yeah, they were.
They were at the Philly show as well, doing RCRs and subs.
I didn't see them at the Philly show, but I don't look for that stuff. Unfortunately, it shows I should start paying attention. You know, Philly show, by the way, is a great show, and I mentioned this on my podcast. There's the Dallas Card Show is like Texas, epitomizes Texas. It's flashy. It's got everything, high end, everything, right? Philly Card Show just warms my heart because it's so much vintage there. And you have to really hunt for the flashy and shiny stuff. But that's why I like the Philly Card Show. It's a smaller scale than the Dallas show, but for an old guy like me, it packs more punch for sure.
Yeah, Jason, join in the conversation. Come on in. Moan in. Because I know Jason does a lot of submissions for SGC, PSA, and BGS. And we could probably rattle off about 3 or 4 other different acronyms. You wanted to say something, Mr. Palmer.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think one of the more interesting things when it comes to grading over the past few years has been sort of what's happened to the BGS 9.5. Like, if you look at a lot of like comps for any rookie card, like you can look at the PSA 10 and the BGS 9.5 up until maybe the summer of 2019. Like, those cards were basically priced almost exactly the same. Now, obviously a lot has changed and the market has gone up and it's gone down, but that was one thing that I question whether the BGS 9.5 should have been as closely graded or as closely priced as a PSA 10, or if right now the BGS 9.5 is a little bit underpriced compared to where PSA 10s are. Because there also aren't as many BGS 9.5s, and if you're comparing, pop reports to cards across the board, there aren't as many BGS 9.5s, and it's probably because a lot more people are just sending stuff into PSA. But that price comparison has definitely been something I've kept my eye on, and it like I said, it begs the question: were BGS 9.5s, were they overvalued, or right now were they undervalued compared to that PSA 10?
But Jason asked, "How do I call in?" It's very simple. Click on the link, and you'll be drug into it. And
just make sure you're wearing a blue shirt because it is Blue Shirt Day.
Logan said that, and I'm like, that is
funny.
complete. Let's settle this like men. Okay, let's settle this like men. There you go. I like yours.
How about the shout out for the Blacksburg Bruins down there at Blacksburg, Virginia.
I'll give a shout out. I'll be their Huckleberry.
There you go.
I will be their Huckleberry. Speaking of Texas, there he is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and kids of all ages.
Oh, boy.
It's Jason and Aiden. What's up?
What's going on, everybody? How you doing?
What's up?
So we were just commenting about John, you just kind of, there we go.
Sorry.
I guess I may have did that accidentally. Jason, we were talking about the Beckett 9.5s. Any comment on that Beckett 9.5s and their value and maybe just having problems, or have you seen that? Have you not seen that?
With the emergence of SGC 10s, what's happened is the interest and the price points for BGS 9.5s not only are pretty stable at half of a PSA 10 comp right now, but sometimes even below that, where the SGC 10s are consistently about 20% higher than a BGS 9.5, which is interesting swing in the market because people talk about SGC actually gaining momentum in the hobby, and you can see that just based on the price points. BGS, their marketing strategy Their consistency is a problem. I submit for myself as well as other people. The fact that they literally changed their centering standard, where I measure centering for every card I've ever sent in, and they're 0.5 off in a bad direction. And then when I called them out on it, they just said they got a new centering tool. That's unacceptable, right? Like, that's not even subjective. You can measure centering. How are you 0.5 off?
That's math and science right there. That's not subjectivity, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, from my perspective, I can't recommend BGS because their 9.5s got harder and they're not accurate, right? Like, when I'm getting 0.5 away from 9.5s on all my 9s, it's not a coincidence. I didn't change, right? My standards did not change. Something else did. And I think the hobby's taken notice, including me. I mean, big smitters, we all notice that kind of stuff. We've been doing this forever. So I think they're hurting themselves. The market's paying attention, and unfortunately, the prices are falling.
So explain SGC then. What are they doing right? Is it the holder,
SGC,
the tuxedo holder, or?
Yeah. So SGC is literally the most consistent grading company. And understand, I never saw myself submitting to SGC, right? It was PSA, BGS. So I'm not a fan favorite of anybody. I'm just speaking from a market and grading consistency basis. I can tell you I've only had 3 cards in an SGC holder that I do not agree with the grades. And it's not like they're that far off. I cannot say that about PSA or BGS. And I'm talking, I submit a lot of cards on a regular basis. They are consistent. Their price points are consistent. And even it shows, you know, on eBay, it's a little different, right? Like if I put an SGC 9 up on eBay, you have a lot of competition. A lot of the markets turn into flippers. But it shows people don't give a dang. It's an SGC 9. They really don't. You know, it's collector shows eat that up. It's graded. They want the card, and they don't mind paying for it. And I've been able to consistently make money on the lower level cards that are no longer being able to be submitted to PSA or BGS based on their price point. So,
yeah. Adam, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it also probably comes down to, like, if you're looking at a BGS 9.5 too, like, there are different levels to what that card can be. You know, you could have a card that has a 10 as one of the subgrades, and then a bunch of, and then 9.5s on the rest, and then it's going to come out as a 9.5, you know, or you could just have 3 9.5s. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that you can, because I sometimes, I know it varies, but like you could have 3 9.5s and 1 9 and still get a 9.5, correct? So like there are just levels to BGS that I think I think that may be something that confuses people in a way. Like if they're looking at price comparisons, it's not so straightforward. Like SGC 9 is this, PSA 9 is this, PSA 10 is this, SGC is this. It's like BGS 9.5 could be anywhere from a PSA 8 to a PSA 10, just based off of certain subgrades and how those subgrades kind of even out to the price or even out to the grades. So, I mean, I guess from that perspective too, like that could be maybe one reason why people don't like it. But I think, just from, like you said, also from a consistency perspective too, like those, I have seen posts and people talking about like they've sent the same card in. And I think with grading, it's a double-edged sword. Like when we send our cards in, we want them all to get good grades. But if they aren't deserving of those good grades, then that's not good that's not good. But if they don't get good grades, then we're angry that they didn't get good grades, even though they may not have deserved it. So, I mean, it's definitely, the grading conversation is something that it just never ends. Like there's always something to talk about with grading. So that's why I think it's such a consistent conversation that's had in the hobby as well.
Well, Chris, this is a great, I like Chris to speak about this. 20 years from now, most people won't care if it's in a BGS, PSA, SGC, HGA, LPZ, XYPD, QZ. I mean, are we collecting cards? Are we collecting slabs here? Chris, that's a great comment. That's a great comment.
I think they'll care if it's in an off-brand slab.
How many off-brand slabs have survived the last 20 years? We don't see a lot, right?
Yeah, they've pretty much been. I mean,
Right.
when was the last time you saw like a GAI or an SCD slab?
Only when I crack
They've all
them.
been pretty much cracked open or crossed over by now.
In the recycling bin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also just comes down to the card too. Like, is it a Luca base Prism card or is it a Luca numbered to 199? Like, if for whatever reason someone sent in that, like, a just as an example, the Luca to 199 in some sort of off-brand slab, I think that's cards probably that people would be willing to buy that card. But if it's just a random base card of any player, like, they're not gonna. The off-brand slabs aren't going to be as desirable. But at the same time, it's like, if you're collecting it, you should just want to buy whatever you want to buy. Like, that's kind of always the default that I come down to, is like, you should buy what you want to buy and not be influenced by, content creators or people talking about a certain thing a certain way. It's kind of like, that's the one thing that I always default to.
But there
Yeah.
are like, so I've been to like collect cons or true like collector shows where it's literally like I even had to explain what a graded card, why an item was worth more than a non-graded card to somebody. And they, for the cheap slabs, they really just want the card, right? They're buying the card, not the grade. They're buying the card, not the slab. They don't care. They're like, well, it's protected. I'll pay, $15 more to get your slab. And that's really how I was surprised that I sold so many cheap slabs as I did, but it was to the collectors. It was honestly to the collectors. And that was awesome to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, if you're just collecting, I think spending less on maybe an off-brand slab is worth it because you're just getting the card. It's like, it doesn't matter as much. Like, if you don't plan on reselling the card, like, it shouldn't. I guess it kind of matters, but at the same time, it's like, buy what you want to buy.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we got Mr. Newman. There's recognized grading companies, and then there's pretty slabs. I like that comment. And then you got Mr. Gocher there. CSG is the only other possible fourth option. That's interesting where you've got the CSG, SGC. God, I do not want to keep using acronyms, but it seems they keep coming up and up and up. Those two are going to end up, two companies enter, one company leaves. Is there a direction or anything like that y'all kind of see one in front of the other? Because there is rumor out there, Fanatics and CSG, that partnership 5, 6, 12, 15 years from now could pop up. I mean, is that in the back of everybody's minds, or who cares until we get to that point?
You're just talking about rumor and innuendo right now. I don't really put much credence into that.
Well, I think also, so with CGS, which is CGC, one of their, because they do tons of different grading, I'm pretty sure Jay-Z's investment company was one of the companies that bought CGC, and then also Jay-Z is involved in Fanatics as well. So there is a little bit of a tie there when it comes to that. So I mean, what I think ends up happening is PSA probably ends up buying like one of the smaller grading companies, and that's how they're going to get down to that $10 submission again, is that they're going to use the resources of the smaller grading company, and they're either going to it's going to be a PSA / one other company slab, or something along those lines is going to happen. So I think like I said, I think the grading conversation is always going to be one in our minds. And like, if Fanatics comes out with a grading service, like, where does, like you were saying, like, where does that kind of step in potentially? So, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be interesting.
I think the problem with that is, look what happened to BCCG and how ridiculous those slabs are, right? You can't have a lower end grading. There's pushback on that for sure, because that was tried. And it's, talk about junk slab. That's the epitome of junk slab right there, right?
Yeah.
And there's no roadmap in this business. We all know that from the get-go, from the 50s, early 50s. There's no, you can't predict any of this stuff. It's just, there's no long-term plan in this hobby I don't care what any of these companies say. This is not a straight road. We're on constant switchbacks here in this hobby.
Very true. Very true. Hey, Aiden.
What?
What did the baby corn say to the mama corn?
How are you doing?
No. Where's popcorn?
Oh,
Bad dad jokes. Had to get a bad dad joke in there. Hadn't done that to Birdie in a while, so I figured I'd do that to Aiden. I hope you're having a good day, Aiden.
I
And
am.
that's awesome. Speaking of PSA, PSA came out and said they're absolutely grading Mac Jones cards like crazy. Does it surprise anybody?
It's the
Race to the
only,
bottom.
yeah, I mean, it's the only big football product that's out right now. Like, there are a bunch of other base, absolute. There's other base certified. I guess you could kind of put that in the conversation as well. But like, I just think that like last year, Prism came out December 2nd. And now we're looking at the end of January for Prism football to come out. Like the end of January is the playoffs. So like, I know it's not as simple as just flipping the switch and the release schedule is back to normal, but like we're in week 14 and the biggest card for football right now is Donruss. So like, if you look at the other quarterbacks in the league, all of their PSA 10s are around $100. Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, even Justin Herbert, I think is in like that $200 range. So it's like, I think people see, I understand why so many people are sending it in, but I also at the same time think that anyone who's willing to send in a Donruss Mac Jones base card for $150 to $300, I think from my perspective, and this may not be correct, but like, I think that they are smart enough, if they're doing that they're smart enough to look at the other comparisons, like the other quarterbacks, and also look at like their prices. And like, so I just think, I think a lot of people sent it in because they saw those first few that sold for a couple $1,000s, which, the jury is still out on whether those were actually legit or not. But people saw that and they said, well, I'm going to do that. And that's why so many of those cards got sent in.
Are you saying there could be possibly market manipulation?
You said that. I didn't say that. Well, actually, I did. Actually, you know what? I have said that. So yes.
Chris, what is? You've been in, you're a hobby veteran and a chorist.
And a what?
Chorist, somebody who's at the core of the hobby.
Thought you said something.
I thought it said something that began with a WH.
Yeah. Well, I will whore myself out for cards.
We're all card whores, for sure.
Now you said that, not me.
Yeah. Okay.
Prism coming out. There is a potential of Prism coming out after the football season. I mean, isn't that? Well, to me, that sounds kind of ludicrous. I mean, that sounds crazy talk, but we're facing that kind of situation.
Every product's been backed up.
Look at flagship hockey.
Oh, what was that?
Somebody's at your
My
door. UPS.
You got to go eat the pizza?
At your PSA slap, your PSA submit from 2019 just showed
I
up.
got those back yesterday. Oh my God! Don't even get me started.
But no, I mean, you've got Prism that could possibly come out after football season.
Well, we saw it with Optic with basketball, right?
Yeah.
But didn't that kind of...
The thing is that there are just so many brands being put out in all sports. I don't want to use the O word, but, they're overproducing on the number of different brands. And that's really pushing a lot of the core flagship brands like Prism, the brands that are actually going to, keep their money and interest over a long term. Pushing them back. So it's an issue that I think we're just going to have to deal with until either production capacity, another printer comes online, or, they just stop making more new products.
Yeah. Which one do you see more likely, Adam?
I guess it's tough because it's like, I come at this from two perspectives here. So like, I come at it from like somebody who, I want collectors and people in the hobby to have fun. but I also come at it from the perspective of like these companies they're trying to make money. So like, why would they, I guess maybe from a long-term perspective, why would they look at a Prism and say, we're just going to not make it, or like, we're going to stop producing it? If people are going to buy it, why would they say we're going to stop making it? Like they're trying to make money the same way that people within cards are trying to make money. So I look at it from both those perspectives. And like, another thing that just happened recently is like Target's been dropping a lot of sports card boxes on their website, and they just had a restock of Prism basketball megas. So it's like, how much of that product is there if 9 months after the release, they're still coming out with that product? And, then it makes me think like, why? And I'm assuming that product was probably, that product was in production way before everything kind of shut down, I would imagine, or right after. But at the same time, like, why week 14 of the NFL season for the biggest card of a football player to be out that is most available, for that to be Donruss is just, I don't think that's good. Like, I don't think that's good.
Well,
and we're not going
to be fair, Donruss is kind of like a flagship brand,
right? Well,
right.
It's probably like if I'm
should
ranking
be the one
products,
that's the most available.
correct, right? I 100% agree. Like from the top, flagship products for football and basketball, in my opinion, it's like Prism, Optics, Select, Hoops, and then Donruss are probably the top 5 brand equity products, I think, for basketball. So like, in football, but football is probably a little bit different. But Donruss goes across both sports. So I just think that like it should be more available. But I think that people, I guess I thought that people might have a bit of a different perspective when the product first came out, and look, the fact that we still have there's so many more products that are still haven't come out yet, I guess.
So I look
on
at
that
also
Recon Football and XR and Unparalleled and Phoenix
right.
and all those other.
I think there's an opportunity in everything, right? So from the opportunity standpoint, the fact that Donruss has been already dropped, right? It's not going to have competition in terms of Optic and Prism, direct competition with the top tier or most profitable turnarounds until the end of January, assuming that doesn't get pushed back even further. Whereas before we saw, you had maybe a month and a half to flip the product if you're a flipper and make your product or your profit. And that's why, like with the Mac Jones and everybody's sitting there is in now. It's smart, right? They're not, in my opinion, those guys that are sending him in now at $150 to a PSA level, they're not planning on holding it. They know they have 2 months longer than they normally would have to dump that product because Donruss is the most premier product out right now. And it gives them a little more longevity in terms of making a profit or flipping for a gain. Whereas like even for SGC, if you just now sent in SGC, you might run into a problem getting those back and competing with Optic and Prism and completely oversaturating the market. And your cards automatically being worth less by the time that stuff drops and you get it back.
Well, okay, John, I got a question for you. You and I have not really ever talked before, so I'm gonna be interested in your opinion, because I'm of the mindset that next year, if I'm Topps, I'm already in the works for a Topps football and going no logo, not caring. Would you be opposed to buying a Topps or collecting a Topps football product next year to compete against the Donruss that's having printing issues?
They did that in the 70s. No logos, right? In the 70s. That's what Topps football was.
Right.
I like to tell people, I know I say it ad nauseum, but every card I want has already been made and was made a long time ago. So, there's too many cards out right now. So I'm not looking to buy any other cards, to tell you the truth. Especially, how many football issues are there? 40 something in a year?
Yeah.
48? Do we want a 49 from Topps? I don't know. Just to buy because of the Topps logo? I don't know if that makes sense for me,
And who's Topps going to put in this product? Because they may not have.
Practice squad players. Let's get some practice squad.
They're not going to have an NFLPA license to put active players unless they do what Fleer did in the 70s and 80s and make those
team card
cheese ball team in action cards that have like 7 or 8 different players on it.
You know
Well,
what
they're
we
gonna
do
put
want
it in the
to
number one
say
draft
is
pick, right? Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
I mean, Topps did that this year.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like a flagship type of product. I think
football
that's what
heritage would be
Brad's
nice, right?
thinking
Because
of.
that's the coolest thing about what Topps can do is all those old designs. You know, the 70 Topps football or even further back. You know.
Well, my main point was just something else to compete against. You know, so we've got just Donruss out right now for that's on the shelves being, for lack of a better phrase, relevant. I mean,
You
why
guys
not?
tell me what's the market for that? I mean, like I said, I'm a kind of stunted in my collecting growth. I have a bunch of modern football behind me, but I don't look at them that often. Is there a market for another set or a top set?
I don't know. I would always be a fan of somebody going back and reprinting older. Give me I'm trying to think. The Johnny Unitas. Give me a reprint of a Johnny Unitas, or give me a reprint of a Rex Grange, or of a reprint the Walter Payton.
Well, you know, the 55 Topps football, apparently All-American, I think it was called. They did that without any modern players, and I think they kicked the teeth out of Bowman. That might have been the last hurrah for Bowman, the original Bowman. So it's not unprecedented, that's for sure.
Yeah, I just give somebody else a different look than opposing, just because there's not any. If I want football right now, I mean, you can't even find Donruss Christmas on the. You can't find Donruss on. You can't find football.
And football has no excuse, unlike basketball, and hockey, and baseball, they were upended by the pandemic. Football was not. So their timeline has not been affected. Right. So maybe they're taking advantage of a lull late January, right? Dog days of hockey and basketball, no baseball yet. Maybe that's their thinking. They can own January to February. I don't know.
I don't know. I just think it would be cool to go back and do something like that, and to see those older iconic cards. How about a reprint of a Roger Staubach, or some of the older cards that are big in collect. Any of the 70s and football that are popular right now, you could do a reprint of and release. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head and giving us a second option.
As long as Panini has the exclusive license, none of this is actually going to happen or can happen.
So you're saying
thanks for having
nobody
me
can
in,
go
guys.
back
My
and
tablet's going to die.
Huh?
My tablet's going to die. I appreciate you guys having me in.
All
right. See you, Jake.
Right.
Thanks for calling
in. So you're saying they can't whatsoever reprint old cards whatsoever?
Is that they had agreements, right, with the NFLPA? They did not have agreements back in the 70s with the NFL. So I don't know whether that's in perpetuity. Those people at that time, they have the rights in perpetuity, or whether.
And the thing is, too, I mean, this is Topps that we're talking about. They reprint everything. I'm pretty sure that they've already reprinted these cards in some football sets, whether they were as inserts or whether there was some kind of like a 2001, 2002-ish Topps Archives baseball product, but for football. I'm pretty sure they've already done that. So
what's interesting about that though is football. Collecting football really didn't gain steam, I think, until the late
80s and early 90s.
Well, even so, you know what I mean? It's there's Rice and there's Montana and stuff like that, but man, really, football was kind of far in the back of people's minds in collecting.
It was a distant number 2.
Yeah, for sure.
To baseball. So
no, I was just trying to think of we've got limited options on the shelves right now. What else could be done to not not jump on that ultra modern Mac Jones type? We don't know what the rookie class is going to be next year. We don't know what the market's going to be, but you sure know that there's a market for 1970s, 1960s football.
Yep.
You sure know it would be
by
cool.
late 60s.
Yeah. it would be cool to have a secondary Walter Payton card. It'd be really cool to go back and see a Johnny U or a Geraint. Same names because they're popping up over and over and over. But something like that, similar.
Right.
Yeah, and John, going to be worse for baseball wax. Yeah. Let's see. John says Tops can't make current players. They have no right. So why not go back and bring out like a Heritage or Tops archives football?
Like those Mick Mantle refractors, right back in the day.
Yeah.
There is a Topps basketball set that they're coming out with in 2022. Like, I think we saw Dirk Nowitzki autos, and I forget, Kenny Smith maybe was the other player that had autos. There was a set that I don't know if it was leaked on purpose or if it was leaked on accident, but like there were people, or Kenny Anderson, I think it was not Kenny Smith, Kenny Anderson, they were signing Topps cards of Topps finest, and people were kind of doing their investigation on the image itself in the box that I think all the cards came in said 2022 Topps finest basketball. So, I mean, I think from Topps's perspective, I think their wheelhouse for coming out with these unlicensed products are going to have to be, legends and Hall of Famers. And then they're going to have to come out with like college and high school athletes, because that's even what they are doing. They're doing that with the Bowman Next Topps Now set. Like they came out with the Mikey Williams card, or they have the overtime elite set that they came out with that they're coming out with now. And now they're, like I said, they're also doing some of the college athletes have a Bowman Next Topps Now set or Topps Now cards. So it's like, I think they're kind of looking at it and saying, this is the only way we can do it. So we're going to try and capitalize on an opportunity to create like how the first Bowman Chrome for baseball, that's the card that everybody wants. We're going to try and do that for high school and college athletes because that's kind of the only way we can do it. Like they can get the licenses probably of players that are in high school because they're not under any type of Players Association license.
But Panini kind of already has been doing that with the USA Baseball license.
Yeah.
They have high school and college players, and I really don't see much of a demand for those cards.
It's going to be like the early 90s Classic. Where minor leaguers, it's such a crapshoot. Because these guys are the best on their high school team. It doesn't mean they're going to be the best on their single A team, because their single A team is filled with people that were the best in their high school team, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a little baby turtle trying to swim to the ocean. There's so many things getting in the way of that person being a stud or a collectible entity, really.
So, Brad, I brought up this little tab here. 2001 Topps Archives football. Topps already did this set 20 years ago. So there's the Jerry Rice reprint.
Did they have a license back then?
Paul Jones reprint.
Sure they did, right? Topps, did they still have the...
I think it was up until 2013 or 2014 they were making football.
Now, John says they can make anything unlicensed, but have to decide to produce. Yeah. Well, I still submit that there's thought out there, content creators, cards. I mean, I'm all in. I'd be willing to sign the contract tomorrow.
I still see Topps making Bowman Draft for a while. So.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the license until 2025. So.
Well, we're coming up on the hour. We have just 1 or 2 minutes left. John, appreciate you joining. Any thoughts, gripes, complaints, nags, or pet peeves before we bow out?
I just I wonder how many people are currently have exited the hobby that still have their cards waiting for them at PSA, right? So imagine the surprise these kids are going to have in 6 months when that money they spent in early 2020 rolls up on their doorstep. So,
there you go.
I wish them luck.
Mr. Palmer, I'm offering you the blue pill.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2020 cards in general, just we saw it get to levels where it had never been before. So, we saw people talking about collecting second and third and fourth year rookie cards. And I think it was more about just trying to find the opportunity. Like, I think, with certain cards getting to a certain level, it kind of, like, even rookie cards, even prism-based rookie cards, people got priced out of the what is supposed to be the flagship basketball and football sets. Like, Luka's got up to like $1,400, and someone coming into sports cards isn't going to spend $1,400 on a card that and maybe I'm wrong. Again, maybe I'm kind of projecting a little bit here, but 3 years ago, that card was worth $80 or even $40 at some point. So it's like, somebody coming into cards isn't going to want to spend $1,400 on a card that a year ago was $80, So I think from that perspective, it's being careful to try and promote the pricing of cards as much and try and show people that there are other ways to enjoy the hobby. And that's something that I've tried focusing on over in my content over the past year or so, is trying to talk about more just news and stuff like that and focus less on the price of the cards, because, obviously hindsight's 2020. Yeah. Hindsight's
2020. There you go.
Hindsight's 2020. So we obviously in 2019, we didn't know 2020 was going to get to that point, but in 2020 and into 2021, you look back and it seems a little bit obvious that there was going to have to be some sort of, correction, I guess, in the market. And I think it's important to put that into perspective, that even if you take 2020 out of the conversation, like from 2019 to 2021, there was still a significant increase in pricing of cards. So, for me, it's just focusing on trying to figure out how to best inform people and best deliver information in a way that helps new people, but also is informative to people who have been in the hobby.
Yeah.
And retain those that have just come in, right?
Right, correct.
Try to, yeah.
And by the way, visit your local LCS today, please.
That's right.
After this, I'm headed out. I'm going to buy something. I don't know what it is, but hopefully something cheap.
Chris, you got any thoughts, gripes, complaints, nags, or pet peeves? Well, I know you got a lot of pet peeves.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we'll
this is
pull that
only
one out.
1 hour show, and we're already over time, so I think we ought to just cut it here. So,
all right. Well, thank you everybody for grabbing your cup of coffee and joining us. We appreciate you joining Mr. Keating. Appreciate you, Jason and Aiden, watching and listening to my bad dad jokes. Programming note: we are going to have the show the 14th, and we are going to have a show on the 18th and on the 21st. We're not going to have a show on the 25th. We're going to have one on the 28th, and I'm going to say everybody stay tuned for the 28th, because the first is that end of Saturday. So I'm not going to be 100% sure we're even going to do the 25th or the 1st. So your next two shows are going to be on Tuesdays. So just programming notes and heads up.
who's hosting next week? Do you know?
Next week on Tuesday, we have John Newman, the great Susan, and Sam Shuford. So please, it's ladies' night. Literally, with John Newman, it's ladies' night. And yes, I got my John Newman shot in. It's ladies' night, Tuesday night. So get your martinis ready. I will be watching. I will definitely be watching next week, and might even make a comment. So this week Tuesday, John Newman, Suze, and Sam, and then in the weekend it's Jeremy Lee, Mr. Dr. Jim Beckett, and Jason. So there's two great shows coming up. But I'll end with this, as I do with my show. If you have any prayer requests, please let me know, and I will pray you up. Support your local LCSs. Support your local hobby shops. With that, I will bid you adieu. And from Texas and from Hobby Hotline, y'all stay classic.